G'day, I'm Ian Swain, the owner of Swain Destinations, and welcome to another episode of G'day with Ian Swain. Today I'm thrilled to welcome my good mate Robert Moore of the Moore Family Collection, who lives in Johannesburg, South Africa. Robert and I go back many years, and his company owns and operates safari camps throughout Southern Africa and boutique hotels in Cape Town and Victoria Falls. One of the many experiences with Rob and I that I remember well is when Linda and I were leading a group of about 50 friends from Philadelphia, and we were staying at Rob's Tinga and Narina camps in the Kruger. And Rob arranged a very special dinner for the entire group in the bush, complete with all his family, Britt, his brothers, his sisters, and his two lovely daughters, Mac and Maddie. And it was then I realized his love of family and the Moore Lodge's family are one and very similar to the Swain family. We hit it off like you wouldn't believe. So welcome, Rob.
Thank you, and great to see you.
Now, Rob, just starting off with your beautiful girls and twins, of course, Mac and Maddie, who must be 11 now. Have there been any family enhancements done at Lion Sands in light of the refurbishment recently completed? And when do you feel the youngest age for children going on safari? And can you please explain Mac and Maddie's children's program that was started?
So when we started the business a few years back now, my wife and I, Britt, we didn't have kids at the time, and I guess that was actually 20 years ago when we first started at Lion Sands, and then you're correct, and they've just recently turned 11, and I guess becoming a parent and running a hospitality business, it allowed us to see firsthand the opportunity and the value of taking your kids on safari. So to go specifically to your question about what age, I mean, I've been taking my kids on safari from a very young age, and I know that that's not always available to everyone, but because we have the fortunate opportunity of having access to any of our properties. The best age, I guess it depends on how addicted the family becomes to going on safari. I mean, I believe that from as young as kind of 6, 7, 8 years old, that's an initial great level to expose kids to the wilderness. I also believe it's a type of experience that once it gets under their skin, both the parents as well as the kids, it's something that they want to keep revisiting. And the great thing about not only our portfolio, but Southern Africa and the rest of Africa, is you can actually return to it at different times, going to different experiences. And as the kids get older, you can go, I guess, more adventurous. So going back to the story that you referenced in terms of Mac and Maddie, which we named our family safari program, we have that primarily at Madekwe Safari Lodge in the Madekwe Game Reserve and Marataba Safari Lodge in the Waterberg, just because it's non-malaria, there is less density of predators, so therefore far safer for younger kids. And when I say younger, from let's just say 6 to 12, and what Britt and I learned becoming parents is that children don't have off buttons. They don't have a slow down button. They have an on and then an off in the evening. So you need to build a safari experience which is not only the morning and evening safari, but you also need to fill the day in between with really fun activities for the kids to learn and engage and get back to nature. And again, what I love about one of my jobs, and actually it's written in our purpose statement, where we get up early in the morning to create enriching experiences for our guests, and being in the fortunate position to expose kids to the wonders of the wilderness, and it's just such a privilege, and because you can see their perception and their understanding and their awareness and their knowledge and their appreciation just grows the more time they spend in the bush. So for me, families on safari, it's probably one of the most important times in one's life, if you haven't been on safari prior to having kids, is to do it as a family. And the other thing which safari does for generation or for multi-gen travel is that everybody's excited about going on a game drive, especially if it's their first time. Yeah, and that's the iPads and all of that sort of disappear, and there's such a level of human engagement and connection between kids and parents and kids and grandparents. It's a truly magical experience to invite and to host families that come on safari.
Yeah, we do a lot of multi-generational families, as you know, and we utilize your 2-bedroom villas like the Fish Eagle Villa, etc., and that type of thing. You set it up to do that, and that's one of the things I love about your collection of properties, is that you are so family orientated to every degree. And just as you're explaining the Mac and Maddie family safari options, it's just incredible. I've got to put it down as you were one of the first people to create tree houses in the bush as part of the experience, such as Chalky's treehouse. And the first time we went there, not long after it opened up, we sent my son Ian to and his then girlfriend to have an incredible experience while staying there. And in fact, we thought it was going to be a proposal experience, but not then, but it did certainly happen shortly thereafter. But I asked Ian for one word to describe the experience, and he said unforgettable. But Dad, one word is a bit tough to describe because lots of feelings happen when you're alone in the bush. You now have tree houses at most of your camps now, if not all of them. How do the guests handle the isolation out there? I mean, they're isolated here in the world right now, but I mean, how are they finding it before that? And were any of them scared, or are they just excited? And did you have what sort of feelings did they have?
So where did the idea originate from? So we spent a lot of our youthful years coming down to the reserve. That Lion Sands has been in our family for 4 generations, and we used to come here as youngsters, and my brothers and I often used to go out and camp on our own, or with a few friends out in the middle of the reserve, and the experience of sitting in essence in solitude, although there were often 2 or 3 of us, it just, and what's been interesting about this period that we've been going through in this lockdown, there's been a lot of conversation around mindfulness and reconnecting with oneself, and that's certainly the idea behind it, to find a place where there is silence from all sorts of technology or white noise or noise that we often have tuned out, but it's still very much there. And to get into, even at the lodges where there's electricity and staff and the kind of your senses are still trapped in what we've created at the properties. But when you get out there under the stars in the middle of the reserve, and there's just the noises of the night, it's just something that's all of your senses, I think it's something primal as well, all of your senses just start to come alive. And it's that, so in terms of the emotions, I think it is an emotional roller coaster, because goes from anxiety to fear to calmness to just in awe of nature. But it's been amazing. People, I think some people sleep, some people I don't think do sleep, but it's certainly unforgettable. You're right. It's definitely one of those experiences, and ultimately our objective is to get people to understand nature and build an affinity with it, because by doing that, we know that that's our best chance of protecting these incredible wilderness areas for generations to come. So I guess in essence, the tree house is to take people out of their comfort zone and place them in the middle of nature and untouched space, and just fall in love with the noises of the night and themselves and their partner, and just share just an unbelievable experience in the middle of the African bushveld.
Because you also forgot what to mention. One thing about sleeping out under the stars is the stargazing there, because it's incredible to see the stars, and you can see the satellites and the shooting stars coming around the night sky. Talking of the tree houses, we send a lot of honeymooners to your camps, as you know. And being such a family-friendly company, is it easy to keep the honeymooners travelers separate from the family multi-generational travelers in camp, or do they want to join in, do you find?
What we've really enjoyed in our relationship with yourself and all your travel experts is is they know which lodge is more attuned to honeymooners and which one is attuned to family. So we're very fortunate to have a collection of properties where we're able to actually separate those types of guests into the perfect property, you know, and often those who, you know, be booking online or coming direct, they wouldn't quite know which lodge to fit into, and that's why working through yourselves, you know, that Narina is you know, it's just its whole character, its design, its configuration of the room is sort of the perfect honeymoon property, you know, which is still has availability to the tree houses. So it's a matter of knowing well beyond the brand and understanding the essence of guest experience that we've created at each property. I mean, you know, you talk about family, and I, you know, obviously we are a family, as is yours, but we view our properties like children. You know, they all belong to the same family. The same golden thread of service and commitment to guest resides between all of them. But as with your kids, as are mine, they're completely different and unique in their personality. And that's how we've sort of viewed the guest experience, and we've ensured that, you know, as much as we can, we train and educate. And I know you guys visit very frequently, which is great because you see the constant updates and you understand which property suits which guest, because that ultimately for us and for you is our responsibility to the guest, is to match them and their expectations and needs with the best experience within South Africa.
Right, and speaking of that, of your properties, you've grouped together a great circuit of must-see areas in Southern Africa, one of the few safari outfitters that can do that. Can you tell us a bit more about the great specials or combinations that should be considered with your lodges and hotels, and elaborate on the differences, say, between the camps in the Kruger and the Madikwe, and also how easy it is to join Vic Falls and Cape Town into a circuit?
Sure. So, I mean, it's been my sort of vision and objective to always create a collection of referencing back. You know, it's certainly not a chain of the same experiences. That's why each one of our properties has its own name. And again, referencing back to what I've just said about that, you know, they all belong to the same family, but they have their unique personality. So the nice thing about that is every one of our properties, although it's part of our collection and we own them all, each one's got its own character and personality. So you're not going to get the same experience being generated at any single or any two properties. In terms of the collection, so I mean, the majority of visitors, certainly who are coming to South Africa for the first time, are combining an element of Cape Town. They're then looking to go on safari, and then they look to either begin or end or use it somewhere in between a couple of nights in Victoria Falls. So that's been our ambition. And finally, 2 years ago, we opened the first boutique hotel in Victoria Falls, the Stanley and Livingston Hotel. And that for me was such a milestone in terms of our whole journey of building our business and building our guest experience. In terms of the offers, I mean, you know, it's just, we're so passionate about what we do. We're so passionate about giving our guests value that in essence, we didn't want to create promotional offerings that are sort of available on a Monday and a Friday and never again, or only in certain very few times in the year. So we've been consistent every single year in offering some really great incentives for customers to stay within our collection. So the two most popular offers that we have, which obviously you guys do really well in promoting it for us, is if you book any 3 nights of any of our lodges, and 3 nights, you know, we try to make it sensible in terms of understanding how many nights most people spend at a lodge, and that would be between 3 or 4 nights. So the promotion is a 3-night at any one of our 3 lodges, and you get either a 2 free night stay at our boutique hotel in Victoria Falls, the Stanley and Livingston, or 2 free nights at either one of our hotels in Cape Town. And we've tried to make that outside of peak season, which is really around the Christmas period of the year. We've made that available throughout the year. So that's been very appealing to the traveler, to extract some extra value while they're moving through Southern Africa. And also not essence, it's a begrudge purchase because the one product is sort of the aspirational one and the other one's not great. So the promotions have been very successful in sort of delivering on our dream, which was to create this itinerary of beautifully unique properties throughout Southern Africa. Onto the difference between the areas, you know, I mean, right, you know, we grew up on the Lion Sands property, and I've always had a real passion and love for this particular Kruger National Park area of South Africa, which is up on the eastern side of South Africa. And only in the last sort of, as I entered into the hospitality industry, did I truly explore other parts, other wilderness areas in South Africa. And I just felt that it would always be wonderful to be able to offer a cross section of very different experiences. To be honest, the animals are all the same. The elephants are consistent across all regions. But what for me makes such a big difference is the landscape and the character of the land. And from that delivers a uniquely different safari experience. So whether you're at Madikwe, which is a slightly harsher, more open landscape, you move then a little bit further east into the Waterberg, which is where Marataba is, some of the most breathtaking landscape, huge mountain cliffs, and then you move further east into the Kruger National Park, Sabi Sand region. So it's more about the different landscape, difference, and within that, the different safari experience which happens. So, I mean, again, a lot of information, and I mean, that's why fortunately we have you guys to have all of that knowledge, to be able to communicate that to the interested guest. But it's been nice for us to have variety within our collection, so that ultimately a customer who may be looking for a particular experience, we're able to, through your conversations that you have with them, through the conversations we have with you guys, we're able to really tailor and create the perfect fit between a guest and the property and the landscape where they're staying.
That's a great explanation. I just want to go back to Victoria Falls, because I remember I was with you over not long after you decided you were going to take over the Stanley Livingston Hotel and renovate it and created a beautiful property there, and how excited you were for that, because it gave you that extra added benefit of having Victoria Falls as part of your circuit. Can you explain what you did in the redo of the lodge itself? Because I haven't had a chance to be there since you've opened it 2 years ago, but I hopefully get down there as soon as this lockdown finishes.
Yeah, and so I mean, we've always really tried to think from the guest's point of view first, and we really, when we spent, to be honest, must have been 3 or 4 years. It was probably on my vision board 5 years before we even landed there in Victoria Falls. But it's always been part of the dream, and in the, and with that time and that kind of preparation, I've always seen the Victoria Falls as a pause moment on a fairly adventurous, fairly I wouldn't say strenuous, but it's quite a busy holiday program that people have when they come to Southern Africa. If you think of Cape Town, there's so many different activities that people are doing. You're doing Table Mountain, you're doing Cape Point, you're going into the winelands. Safari as well. We know it's a pretty brutal wake-up call when at 5 o'clock in the morning you get a knock on your door and you get a cup of coffee and off you go and you're on safari, and it's quite demanding. So in terms of, people think like, you go on a holiday and it's for once you're able to sleep in and read a book and relax a bit. So we, and with all of that sort of, understanding and knowledge of the guest experience as they move through, we just felt that Victoria Falls, outside of obviously going to see the falls and the few other incredible activities that you can do there, we felt that it was really an opportunity to pause, to slow down, to breathe, to relax, to sort of just recharge for a couple of days. So with that in mind, we looked for a property which was a little bit away from the mainstream buzz and busyness of the little town. We wanted to, we had a high, the idea that I had in my mind was to create this oasis for people to arrive at, sort of traveling through Africa, and they arrive at this beautiful, cool, elegant, sophisticated oasis where there's a high level of emphasis on service. The rooms are spacious, light, comfortable. The food is incredible. High emphasis on the quality of food. Wine selection needed to be really good, because there was a great opportunity to maybe have a glass too many and sleep in the next day, where the safari program, as I mentioned, is quite tough. So all of that sort of, when I was looking up there, those are the kind of key ingredients that I was looking for. So we came across the property that needed some love, and it needed an investment from a group like ourselves, and we were able to land it. And in terms of the renovation process, all of those kind of elements that I've just mentioned, that was constantly being briefed into the interior design, the refurbishment that we did in the rooms. Landscaping, for example, the gardens are extraordinary at our hotel there, because again, we wanted people to feel that they've arrived in this cool, tranquil, safe, peaceful, calm, beautiful boutique hotel, but yet stone's throw away from Victoria Falls. So that sort of encapsulates the guest experience that we've created at the Stanley in Livingston.
I can't wait to visit there, because it's one of my favorite places to visit, and it's something that every guest should travel to. And you touched on a point that I wanted to bring up about the pretty strenuous timetable you have when you're on safari, and I like to tell my clients that I deal with, and then we go through this company, that they should try and spend an extra day on safari than they normally would, so that they don't have to actually necessarily get up, and they can get up at a reasonable hour and enjoy the lodge in the morning and see the lodge wake up, which you don't really get to do if you're on a tight schedule. So that's something we do try to push, and have them stay 4 or 5 nights rather than 2 or 3 nights, and it just enhances their experience a lot. There are some special touches that you arrange for guests when they're on game drive, and I don't want to give away all the secrets that you come up with, but I do recall once, which I'd never had anywhere else, where we normally you go for sundowners, and the ranger stops the vehicle, sets up sundowners on the front of the vehicle, and you sit in this beautiful area. But in your case, we just drove along and found a tree, and then all of a sudden, from the tree were hanging cans and drinks and everything, and the snacks were held up there. What other things can you have, exciting ways of you enhance the traveler's experience while on safari?
Yeah, and the thing I mean, it's something we've always tried to do since the first time we started, is just to be very aware of the unique difference of each guest, not just a couple. And it's incredible how you know, in the first 24 hours of spending time or hosting a guest, you often pick up little bits of information about what their aspiration or expectation or desire is, and in just listening to that, whether it's a conversation with one of our field guides or one of our butlers, with one of the management, you're able to often then, we've kind of got a little toolbox of magic tricks, and once we've identified the sort of surprise element that they would not expect but greatly appreciate, then we look inside that toolbox and we deliver something that is, so it's not just a, wow, you come around the corner and that's amazing. We really try to connect it to a conversation that's taking place with the guest during their first 24 hours with us. And another benefit of the collection, and we worked really hard over the last couple of years on this, is that when our guests are leaving us in Cape Town and heading on safari, the safari concierge staff reach out to the concierge down in Cape Town, and they find out all their experiences that they've had. So they do really feel that they're staying within a family collection, and that we welcome them as family members. You know, they don't sort of arrive as if we don't know where they've come from. So I'm not going to give you any of the little tricks that we've done. You've already alluded to one, but it's just know that this is something we do. We love to surprise our guests, but we make it as relevant as possible to them. And it doesn't just has to, you know, it doesn't just have to be a celebration that they might be having while they're staying with us. It's to give them that little bit edge. I mean, it's something that I've actually done within our group. I love my coffee and I love my hot chili. Those are my sort of two kryptonites. And so we've now got an incredible chili product. I'd like to think it's an incredible chili product. But if I hear any customer saying that they like a bit of chili, the next thing they've got their own little container on the table. And to most chili addicts, that's sort of better than even seeing a leopard on a game drive. So those are the little touches that we try bring in to make it feel like you're staying in a home. That's just, it gets us excited. It gets us passionate about what we do. And we always get rewarded by people just saying, geez, I didn't expect that this kind of level of service and detail and awareness of who I am as an individual traveling to Africa. So it's been a fun part of what we do in terms of sprinkling that magic on top of the overall guest experience.
Yeah, well, I didn't want you to spill the beans, so that's it. But that's a great way to do it. And it's awesome that you can have that access to all their likes and dislikes and make that enhancement just so much better. When I was last in Kruger at the camps, we did visit the community and the preschools in the area, which was a tremendous experience. We all loved it. And can you share some of that experience with your guests have? And probably the most common question I get asked is, what can they bring with them to give to the kids that's acceptable and makes sense to take down there for them?
So yeah, no, great question. I mean, it's such an important part of our responsibility as tourism operators. You know, there is disparity not only in our neighborhood and communities, but around the world of those who have and those who don't have. And I think there's far more global awareness around addressing that inequality. And we've got a non-profit family trust, which you guys have been incredibly generous in supporting. But you know, the reason I hesitate around that is that, you know, I do recognize that first and foremost, customers are coming to us, or guests are coming to us to have an incredible holiday experience. So it's not something that we ever impose upon them while they're staying with us. But if they scratch a little bit under our surface and they will discover this our nonprofit organization called More Community Trust. And we've facilitated some incredible experiences within the community. The other thing that we've done is that it's not a spectator sport, you know. And what I mean by that is that we really encourage our guests, and it's resonated so much with our guests, where they actually love to get involved in something meaningful in the actual community. So, you know, we are constantly invested in partnering with community members on fixing up areas, or we've actually just opened up a new women's working project where they've got sewing machines. And actually some of the guests went out there and got involved in fixing one of the rooms. So they actually went out there for a couple of hours. The guest experience, we call it, is get your hands dirty. And so in terms of knowing, to answer your question, sorry, and I've been a bit long-winded, but I'm very passionate about this work that we do. And the best thing is to reach out to you, who can then link through to us and go onto our More Community Trust website and engage with the staff there and find out in advance because often the needs are changing, you know, based on what projects we're dealing with, what support we've been able to raise for them. So the best thing to do is, instead of sort of having a generic response that this is what's needed, the need is great. But I think if a guest is keen on getting involved, reach out to More Community Trust. It's a non-profit business, incredible team of people, feet on the ground in the communities, and they're able to open up and have a dialogue and work on the visit in advance, and also what the current needs are within the community. So it's just, you know, the more people who get involved, the more difference we can make. So I appreciate you raising that.
No, it's great. Well, the conservation of the whole area is so important, and the kids are so important. Yeah. And it's just, I know that everyone just loves the fact that they can help and be part of the helping, and it's great that you have that done. The other question I want to raise is about walking safaris, and there's a lot of intrepidation about people getting out of the vehicles and walking around because they feel safer in the vehicles, but it's totally safe the way you do it. How do you find the popularity of the walking safaris? Because I know you can do them during game drive, and you can also do them during the lunch break where you're in the camp, and the guides will take the kids out and do, you know, sort of dung spotting and tracking, etc. But do you find that most people enjoy the walking safaris?
So I think people have a perception, a preconceived idea that safari is an active adventure or an active experience, and it's actually not. You're on the vehicle for a large percentage of the time for all the right reasons. But you know, I think once customers have settled in terms of their first 24 hours and realize that, you know, they aren't going to be eaten, and they've started to sort of get a little bit closer to their surroundings, there's nothing better than actually being on foot and seeing a whole different, and almost becoming one with nature. I mean, funny enough, this morning, I mean, I went out for an early walk, just me and one of our field guides, and we walked into a huge herd. There must have been about 80 elephants in this big open area. And those are the kind of experiences where we just sat there quietly under the tree and the elephants came walking past. And those are the kind of experiences that walking safari gives you. Again, it's that peeling back all of our, you know, the vehicles and the safety of them. You actually sit one-on-one with nature. And it really is referencing that word around the treehouse, just an unforgettable experience outside of actually, people are a lot more health conscious nowadays. They like to get exercised. So being out on foot is a wonderful activity to do while you're staying on safari. In terms of when we do it very much based on season. Summertime, we try to do it early in the morning. We actually combine the morning drive with the walk, because otherwise in the middle of the day, it's just too warm. But in wintertime, you guys are up north, we're down south. So moving in this time of the year, you can actually walk any time of the day. And so that we always build that in, but again, we tailor it to the guest needs. We tailor it to the fitness of the guests with the particular guide. Very much something that guides love doing. They actually prefer walking to driving, because it allows them to really teach guests about tracking and the different medicinal plants that they're able to find. I mean, in essence, there's a whole new level of encyclopedic knowledge once you get out on foot and you're going through the bush with them. Quite an extraordinary experience, and a must do when people come out on safari. A must do.
It's an incredible experience to get down there. And as you said, you become one with nature, and you see the whole thing in a different perspective. Finally, during these episodes I've been hosting with different friends around the world, I've been hearing great stories, or uplifting stories, or positive impact stories of what's happening during this lockdown period in the communities, and there's been quite a lot in the African area. So do you have any stories, or a quick anecdote of a story that has happened that you're aware of in your community that made a difference to a lot of people?
Yeah, I mean, it's look, Ian, it's tough. It's tough throughout the world. What this pandemic has done to many poorer communities, and so, but what we've been, we've always been glass half full type of people, and the key thing during this process is to make sure that we look after our people. We do again, the concept of family extends way beyond our bloodline. It extends to our staff and to their families. So we've initiated, I managed to negotiate a contract with the provincial government here to supply them with the masks. So we were able to get that recent sewing project. We've got 5 previously unemployed women who are sewing machines, and they're constantly working from sunrise to sunset, and are actually going to really do quite well out of this. So in terms of seeing an opportunity for them to take advantage of this particular crisis, that's been a really exciting project to get, and we hope following on from that it'll be sustained into other needs in terms of sewing needs within the greater ecotourism environment here. And then, food parcels. I mean, it's a reality that, when the salaries have had to be reduced because of no revenue that's coming into any of this particular area. And we sit on the border of Kruger National Park, which is a huge employer of people from this particular area. So as soon as those salaries have been taken out, those salaries you would go back, and the often number of dependents per salary earner is between 7 and 10. And when you halve that salary, making an assumption that that's what some people have had to do, there's very little room for, there's very little sort of, comfort or protection there around whether I'm going to have food or not have food. So we've had a very productive and very impactful food parcel system that's been running for now 2 months, and that. Again, we've used the reserves. We've had incredible donations from people, from previous guests from all around the world, who have put money into the non-profit organization, which has allowed us to buy food parcels and deliver them, so that we can make sure that when we come through this and we all get back to work, that there's been no permanent casualties from this pandemic situation.
And I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Rob, the way you run your company and your group and your family. As I said at the very start, you're very family orientated, and that's what I love about it, and that's why we support you so strongly. So I really appreciate your time today to talk about the experiences going on down there in Southern Africa. I can't wait to get back there and to go to camp, and then also to get to see the new Vic Falls property. So be well, and my love to the family, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, love to Linda and the family as well. And thank you and very much for your support. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Bye.